Alrighty, everyone, it is Friday, which you know what that means. It is time for News of the Week for January 10th, 2025. And I'm wearing the Arizona Coyotes today. Nordic, why are you wearing the Arizona Coyotes? We'll get to that. First off, I want to start off with thank you for the support the last couple of weeks. These last couple of weeks for the News of the Week videos have done awesome, and hopefully it will keep on going. Let's start off with the signings around the NHL, because there were no trades this past week, surprisingly enough. I think it might be the first week of the entire season where that's happened, except for the 1-2 weeks ago when the roster freeze was going on. Regardless, let's talk about the signings around the NHL, starting off with Ridley Gregg, who was locked up to a 4-year, $3.25 million extension by the Ottawa Senators. It's okay. It's nothing special in my eyes. I don't think that Gregg has been good enough to deserve this amount of money, to be honest with you. But I think that it could turn into a steal if he does end up developing in the next couple of years. Again, I don't think he's been that great, but again, the cap is rising. I think with time to come, he can definitely get better. But for sure, I think it's definitely an interesting extension. And who knows, maybe down the road when the Senators are unreal and Ridley Gregg is unreal, you guys can look back at this video and say how stupid I am, and this contract might become one of the better deals in the NHL right now. The other deal that was signed this past week was an interesting one, and it ties into something else we're going to talk about later on in this video too. Frank Vatrano signed a 3-year, $4.57 million deal with the Anaheim Ducks. However, there is an interesting part to that signing. The deferred money agreement, which is what we saw with the Shohei Ohtani contract a couple of days ago. So I'm going to refer to a Pierre LeBrun tweet, which I think really explains it well. I'll post it on the screen right here as well. Frank Vatrano's 3-year, $18 million extension is an interesting one. He will get paid $3 million a year in base salary, but then $9 million in deferred salary, starting 10 years from now in 2035. He will make $900K a year for 10 years. His plan is to live outside of California and its tax system at that point of retirement. The Ducks, meanwhile, will benefit with deferred payments having a $4.57 million AAV instead of a $6 million AAV on the deal. Creative way for both the team and the player to make it work, and perhaps show other players in the future a way to stick handle around the California tax issue. So I think this is creative. This is something we have not really seen in the NHL. We have seen deferred money in the sense of players getting paid money in the 9th year of a contract. We saw that with Seth Jarvis. We saw that with, I think another player as well, but Seth Jarvis is the biggest example. Yeah, I think that this is very creative. It's like the Shohei Ohtani-esque type deal like it was in the MLB. The NHL, however, is a fan of this now, but they won't be a fan of it in the future. They are going to discuss the possibility of removing the deferred money agreement from the CBA in September of 2026. It's when it expires. So, yeah, this is very interesting for sure. I think that, yeah, it's in the rule book now. I'm okay with it now. I think that it likely should be taken out because imagine Connor McDavid or a big name player. Like Frank Vatrano's not a big name player. In Anaheim he may be, but like overall in the grand scheme of things, he's not a big name player. Imagine if, let's say, again, I'm using Connor McDavid as an example because he is on an expiring deal. Let's say Connor McDavid signs a contract but has deferred money in it. People will lose their minds over this. Like, people will get so angry. Not just, like, people that don't like the Oilers. People that aren't a fan of this deferred money. Like, people are going to lose their minds. And it won't even just be specifically McDavid. It could be somebody else, too. I think people will still be very upset with this. It's just because it's someone like Vatrano, who's not a big-name player, that we're not seeing as much outrage as we would if it were a bigger name player that were to do this. And that's why I think they're discussing the possibility of not doing it or not having it in the next CBA. I totally get it. I totally get it in that scheme of things. I see it from that perspective. But yeah, that was something that really caught my eye that I think we need to keep in mind as well. A couple of suspensions around the NHL this past week. Sam Bennett was fined $5,000 for roughing on Drew O'Connor. That happened last Friday after the news video was announced. Max Domi was fined $5,000 for elbowing Garnet Hathaway. And last night, Nick Cousins was fined $2,000 for elbowing Jacob Bryson. Those are the fines around the NHL this past week. No suspensions either. Again, you can say what you want about the fines. I'm not going to go into them individually. If you want to go look for them, they are on the NHLPA website and on their Twitter, so you can go look at those there. Next up, then, we have some waiver claims. Some things around the league with players being put on waivers, either getting sent down to the minors or they were claimed by another team. We saw a lot of that this past week. Daniel Sprong. I don't know what's wrong with the guy. He was placed on waivers by the Seattle Kraken, was sent down to the AHL with the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I don't know what's up. I don't know what's up with him. I don't know what it is. It has to be a locker room thing. It has to be a locker room thing. Either that or this guy is just, he's not that good. And I get it. He is more of a one-dimensional type player in my eyes. But as well as that too, I also do think at the same time, he might have locker room issues. I think that actually might be what it is. As well as that too, Nick DeSimone was placed on waivers by the New Jersey Devils and was claimed by the Utah Hockey Club. So again, Utah just searching for defensemen there, just trying to get defensemen. And then Arthur Kaliev was placed on waivers by the LA Kings, was claimed by the New York Rangers. Kaliev was a player who never panned out with the LA Kings. He was injured for a lot of this year, and then when he came back, there was not a place for him in the lineup, as the Kings are honestly rolling right now, and he is now a New York Ranger. There's a lot of potential there. I talked about it on the podcast. There's a lot of potential for Kaliev in a role with the Rangers, but we'll have to see because the Rangers aren't the greatest with their development either. I will say that. Okay, let's talk about the Winter Classic. The Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers will be playing in the 2026 Winter Classic at Lone Depot Park in Florida. And I've seen a lot of people being like, how can you play hockey in Florida? And I joked on the podcast and in TikToks about how this would be the first ever game that would be played on roller skates. That's what I joked about. But I think people are blowing it out of proportion because they're saying this is going to be like a middle of the day afternoon game. It's going to be an evening game. It's going to be a game where the sun is most likely not going to be out for all of the game. It's going to be like the one how it was this year where the game was at 5 p.m. in Chicago. It's not going to be like a 3 p.m. matinee game. It's not going to be like a Winter Classic matinee. It will likely be like a 6 or 7 p.m. start time Eastern for this game. I don't think that it would be any other way, to be honest, because I think any other way you couldn't make it work. Like you saw in Lake Tahoe, they tried doing it in the middle of the day and it just didn't work. So again, I think that's likely what it'll be, but I like the idea. It's creative. It's something the NHL hasn't really done. I made a list on my Instagram about the last 10 Winter Classics. I think the Blackhawks were in almost half of them. The Bruins were in 4 of them. The Rangers were in 3 of them. They keep using the same teams, even though they are going back to the Rangers, but they're giving Florida something here, and I think that could be very creative, and we'll have to see where it goes. The other one is actually in Florida as well, but it's in Tampa as the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning will be playing at Raymond James Stadium for the 2026 Stadium Series. Again, I don't hate this one either. I think that it's, again, creative. Another game outdoors. It'll be most likely, again, as the Winter Classic, another evening game. Won't be like a middle-of-the-day game. But, yeah, overall, I really like it. I think it'll be a creative and good idea. But we'll see if it's better than last year's because last year's, again, as I said, had record-breaking low numbers. So, yeah, we'll have to see where that goes from there. But I think it's an interesting idea for a Winter Classic in the state of Florida. We'll have to see. It kind of takes away the perspective of winter. It's like a summer classic. I don't know. Anyways, another news. The World Juniors have wrapped up. The United States won gold. Congratulations to the United States for winning the gold medal, their second in a row. Teddy Stiga with the overtime winner. As well as that, too, Finland, as a repercussion, won silver. And Czechia won bronze. So congratulations to Those clubs. Again, I posted my 2025 mock draft yesterday. Post the World Juniors if you want to go let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below about that draft, or if you want to go watch it, that's always available. But as well as that too, other headlines came out of that World Juniors. David Carl is not going to come back as the Team USA coach in the 2026 World Juniors, which is really interesting because he was there for the last 2 World Junior Championships for this team. And I think he has been incredible. He has such a great resume. He has 2 NCAA championships with Denver. He has 2 World Junior Championships. He is a already highly patented coach. I think he's only 34 years old too. I would not be surprised at the slightest he gets an NHL job at some point. Not saying it'll happen next season, but I think it could happen at some point. It's very possible for sure. He is a well-patented experience. He's a winning coach. I think there are plenty of teams in the National Hockey League who could use a coach like that for sure. Other news around the NHL as we move towards the rumor mill. The game on Wednesday this past week between the LA Kings and the Calgary Flames was postponed due to the California wildfires. Absolutely terrible what's going on there right now in California. My best wishes from here in Pennsylvania out there to California. It has been awful seeing some of the sights and the scenes and the fires. It's been absolutely awful. And it's good that they canceled a game like this because I think it was the right move. It is awful. It is absolutely awful what's going on there right now. Again, as I said, my best wishes go out to them for sure. This is interesting. A committee was formed in Arizona in an attempt to bring the NHL back to Arizona. So I'm going to read into this a little bit more because I think it's very interesting and I think it needs to be read into more. Otherwise, I can't really just leave it there. So the NHL have been in talks with this new Maricopa board chair, again, about bringing the NHL to Arizona. The newly elected Maricopa County Board of Superiors chair, Tom Galvin, is leading the operation. He said, quote, "Losing the NHL was a low point, and I cringed when local politicians took glee of the demise of our hockey team. I had several meetings with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, and he looks forward to working with us to identify an owner and the best location for a world-class building." Gary Bettman did confirm that he met with Galvin before Christmas via Zoom to discuss the formation of the committee and future steps. Again, we've heard this with Atlanta before. We've heard this with the NHL in Atlanta. We've heard it before with them trying to bring it back to Atlanta. I get it. But I think it can work in Arizona. I think it can. We've seen that it can back when they were really winning in 2012. It's just because, you put them in an ideal location. Their owner wasn't particularly the greatest. And I think a lot of those things, went down the way they went. And I think that it resulted in the team being moved. But the team was loved by many. I think that it's very possible for them to come back if they can get a world-class arena, if they can get a building that is convenient. I think it can be done, and I think that it would be an incredible idea to bring them back, and I am all for it. 100% I'm all for it. So, again, that's me being a Coyotes fan there saying that. But, yeah, I could totally see it happening. We'll have to see, though, because, again, these things take time. I'm not saying it's going to happen next season, but I think that it could happen within the next 4 or 5 years. It's very possible there for sure. Next up, we got an injury that I do want to talk about. 2 injuries, actually. Evander Kane underwent successful knee surgery and is going to miss the next 4 to 8 weeks. Yeah, I think Kane likely out for the rest of the season. Unfortunate, but the Oilers are doing okay. He will be back probably by the time the playoffs start. He'll be coming in there as a good middle 6 forward for the team. But yeah, he's been out the entire season. Definitely not ideal there whatsoever. But that's the repercussions of playoffs. That's the repercussions of playing in the playoffs. So it sucks, but it does happen for sure. As well as that too, Dylan Guenther is out indefinitely with a lower body injury. Josh Doan was recalled tonight from Tucson to play for Utah. Unfortunate there, just not good luck there for the Utah Hockey Club. They have struggled without the injuries as it is, and now they're starting to rack up even more. So it has really sucked this season for Utah, but they've had their high points for sure. We'll see where they go after this injury. And then finally, before we move into the rumor mill, Zach Hyman and his family bought the Brampton Bulldogs of the OHL. So I thought that was pretty cool to include. You go from 50 goals to owning an OHL team. It's pretty cool. So I thought I'd include that there as well. Anywho, let's move on to the rumor mill. The rumor mill is basically just rumors around the NHL that I picked up this past week. Starting off with what is going on in Vancouver. You guys have heard the same thing that I've heard, that the Canucks are gauging the market for Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. I'm going to say this. This does not mean at the slightest they are trading them. This does not mean that whatsoever. This just means that they are at least taking a look at what is available. If what they see thinks will benefit the team now, they probably will go for it. If they think that the price is right for Miller and Pettersson that some of these teams are offering, absolutely they should go for that. But it doesn't mean they're going to be trading either of those players. That would just be blatantly stupid, unless if you're getting a haul. I've said this multiple times in videos. I said it when Trevor Zegras was being brought up. I think that people blow out of proportion a little bit. You know, they see a player on the trade market. It does not mean that they're trading him. It means that they're listening to offers at the very least for that player. As well as that, too, the Canucks are seriously interested in Noah Dobson, per Stefan Rosner. So, again, adding on to that, if the price is right and it involves, like, Noah Dobson for Elias Pettersson or JT Miller, I think that you go for it. I'm not saying that it should be, like, 1-for-1, but, again, if the price is right and the price does involve Noah Dobson, they could go for it. But, again, if the Islanders are looking to move on from, you know, players and try and sell off a little bit, they should definitely look into getting Pettersson for sure. That could change everything for this Islanders team. That could change everything. Getting Pettersson could change a lot of things for that franchise if it does mean moving on from Dobson. But again, I don't think that it happens. It's possible, but I just can't see it in my eyes. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind there too. I've seen that the last couple of weeks. I haven't included it though, just because like I don't really think that it would happen, but again, we'll see. With this Pettersson and Miller thing, anything's possible, but we'll have to see. The Red Wings took a real look at Dylan Cousins right before the holiday roster freeze, per Elliot Friedman. I feel like we knew that. I feel like we knew that rumor was going on. I think it's very possible. Just again, like, what are you going to give up if you're Buff or if you're Detroit? And what is good enough to give away a young star player if you're the Sabres? They've done it numerous times before, and all of those players have moved on to go win cups. So I want to say that too. Like, yeah, you could move on from him and get future assets, but like I think that team might relocate if they go through another freaking rebuild. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's just me saying that just to say that. But again, I think that there definitely needs to be some real waking up in Buffalo there for sure. They have been better recently, but again, I just don't think like you should do that. I don't think Kevin Adams should move on from Cousins, and that's probably why it never happened. I don't think it's smart. And then finally, Taylor Hall could get some looks from cup contenders or playoff contenders ahead of the trade deadline. Per the fourth period, again, Hall is experienced, could fit in well on your third line. He's been in like a trade rumor player for so long. He's just one of those players who just bounces around the league now, it feels like, essentially. The only reason why he wasn't traded last season was because of he got hurt. So, again, that is your news of the week for January 10th, 2025. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Not a ton to really talk about, but yeah, still things you can bring up. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like down below. Make sure to subscribe down below if you're new as well. I greatly appreciate that too. But anyways, that's it for me. I will see you guys in the next video.